There we go. Beautiful. How are we doing? Are we ready for a sprint race, and a competitive sprint race at that, to be fair? Because the grid is all over the place, and there's a lot of cars starting in that top 10 that will want those points, basically, more than anything else. Like, they will be looking to get those points on the board. They will be wanting those points more than anyone else. So I am very much looking forward to it. Let's double check we're all good. Thank you, Shtup, for the hello. That means that we at least are live somewhere. Beautiful. I think we're live. We've got some viewers in various places. Connection excellent, it says on Twitch. Excellent, we will take. I don't know who will win. I think like the top 4 is a little bit less competitive, to be honest, because the differential in points that you can get. Like, you look at it now. Let's look at the qualifying board if we can. So you look at it and you go, well, surely Lando Norris, really wants to get past Piastri, or surely Verstappen will really want to make sure that he tries to get a sprint win here, etc., etc. But I just think when it comes to the sprints, and when it comes to the points that you get for a sprint, 8 points versus 6 points, especially to those guys who are at the top end of the grid that are scoring 25, 18, 15 pretty much every single weekend, that 2-point differential, I don't think we're going to see like Lando Norris go for an extreme lunge or anything like that. Thought I had the wrong. I've chucked a hat on, mainly because I got up late and I have not washed my hair yet, so I'm gonna have a shower between the 2 streams and I'll look very different in the second stream. Thanks for the viewing my message, no problem. How are we all? But yeah, I don't think we're gonna see anything ridiculous from Lando Norris or Oscar Piastri or Max Verstappen, to be honest with you, because I just think the points differential that they've got, and Lando Norris gaining a point, losing a point, it's not going to be that big of an effect on their season. You look at the fact that both of the McLaren guys have already scored over 200 points so far this year. It's not going to be a massive thing for them to score one more point. Whereas you look at Esteban Ocon, Carlos Sainz, Ollie Behm and Pierre Gasly, for them, in that mix, actually 1 point is quite a lot of points. They're only looking at possibly scoring between 50 and 60 throughout the whole season if we take the first half of the year and sort of extrapolate it out into the second half of the year as well. So 50 versus 60 points, when you've got an extra 1, 2, 3 points in there, that can make a huge difference to them. So I think the real racing is going to happen from 5th place down to about 11th place, where we've got that battle for the midfield, where we have got Ocon getting 4 points would be pretty big for him this season. Behrman getting another couple of points would be pretty big for him this season, considering where he is right now. So that's the real group that I'm looking at, and the real group that I think we should be watching this race. I hope we do get to see quite a lot of them, because I know that obviously the broadcast more likely to focus in on Piastri versus Verstappen versus Norris and how those 3 play out. But on the flip side, I do really hope that we get to see a little bit of Ocon versus Sainz, a little bit of Behrman versus Gasly, maybe Hadjar trying to get up into those point scoring places as well. I think that would be the more fun viewing, in my opinion. Weather forecast looks clear. Sunny skies, bright blue sky. No rain on the way. I think the early weather forecast that we got sort of 5-6 days ago is not quite lining up with the truth, to be honest. It looks like rain is almost undoubtedly not going to happen. Great midfield lineup. I think this year's midfield lineup is so good. And the fact that all 6 of those cars are quite competitive. Like, I think Alpine now with 19 points, if they finish in last, they will be the highest scoring last place finisher ever. So, like, and I know that there's, like, additional points now compared to the points in the past, but even so, that just goes to show that this season, in terms of the midfield anyway, is the most competitive it has ever been in Formula One history. All right, you can argue the McLaren battle, they're kind of running away with it. And then Red Bull versus Mercedes versus Ferrari should be more of a battle, but unfortunately Max Verstappen is all on his own, and Kimi Antonelli is a rookie versus two very experienced drivers in Ferrari. So it feels like Ferrari are going to come second in the championship. If I was going to predict it right now, I'd go Ferrari second, Mercedes third, Red Bull fourth, but mainly due to the drivers more so than the actual consistency of the cars. And then beyond that, 6 teams, anything could happen in there. Like, very much anything could happen, especially if we get another Silverstone situation where one of those guys gets to be on the podium. You know, we saw Brazil last year where Alpine completely changed the complexion of their season within one Grand Prix. And that can happen when you don't score that many points that often in that midfield pack. It'd be a shame if, like, Alex Albon doesn't come best of the rest. I suppose we've still got another half of a season to play out, but he's been so good in the first half of the year that those 5th place finishes should kind of stand for something. But I suppose consistency is key, and if he can't get back into the point scoring places, whereas Ocon or Hulkenberg is able to sort of get 8th, 9th, 10th place every single weekend, even though you got a 5th place, it's not going to add up to the points that you're able to get over the course of a season. What are the odds of Lewis pulling in Brazil 2021? Almost 0, I would say. I think he was very, very unhappy with the balance of that Ferrari car, and then just overcooked it, didn't he? Overcooked it into turn 18. Not a very Lewis Hamilton move, you know, but he overcooked it, and unfortunately, it is a pretty unforgiving track, especially when it comes to qualifying, because it's so long. You know, it's nearly a 2-minute track, or 1 minute 45 seconds, even on a fast lap. So 1 minute 45 seconds on your fast lap does not leave any room for error. You make a mistake, you're out, especially in that final part of qualifying where it literally was one-shot quali. Those little errors and those tiny mistakes, you've got 2 minutes there, and you've almost got to be perfect for that entire 2-minute run. And that is the challenge of Spa, right? That is why we love it. That is why it's loved by the drivers as well. It's got a little bit of everything. It's got that really high-speed first sector, really technical part to the middle sector, and then that lovely flowing aspect of the final sector with that really tricky bus stop chicane to end it all. Like, it's got a bit of everything, and you have to be perfect for 2 minutes. Like, that is how competitive this year's cars are, because if you're not perfect for those 2 minutes, as we can see, even if you're in a Ferrari or you're in a Mercedes, Hamilton, Antonelli, you will end up at the back of the pack. So it's like absolutely ridiculous, but that is where they have qualified. 15 laps. I can't remember what Sarah said. I don't know if I haven't seen Sarah in the chat yet. Sarah did predict how many laps it was based on maths yesterday, and I can't remember what she said. Was it close to 15? I'll give it the benefit of the doubt. Probably close to 15. When's the race? We're about 20 minutes off the start of the sprint race. So we're just having a little chat, having a little look down the qualifying board. As I've just mentioned, Piastri starting on pole position. Shocked to see the fit. I think, like, the problem is, my mum and dad went to Goodwood Festival. You know, because they're retired and they've decided that that's what they want to do. So they went to Goodwood and they saw that there was Formula One stuff, and they bought Formula One stuff. They don't fully, you know, appreciate that some teams I like more than others or anything like that. They just go, that's Formula One, get that. So I got a lovely Red Bull top. I got a lovely McLaren top that I was wearing yesterday. Oh, lag. Is there lag? Not from my end, but there we are. But yeah, they got me some Formula One stuff, which is very kind of them. And, you know, you can't really say no. But yeah, a bit weird to maybe see me in a Red Bull top. It's where it is. And then the hat is just because pure laziness. Got up super late today. It's Saturday, isn't it? It's warm. Got up very, very late. Was not paying attention to the time. I want to shirt the McLaren one. I've got a couple of McLaren ones, actually. I need to sort out my clothes. I've got like a few McLaren shirts that are lost in packing at the moment, so I need to get there. Sharon is Karen, exactly. Gosh, Sharon. Yeah, exactly, John. They just see Formula One, they get Formula One. They're like, he loves that. That's a thing. Got a Mercedes shirt. Oh, I really want one of the Mercedes Adidas shirts. I think they are by far and away the like best looking shirts. I think Mercedes have always had the best looking merchandise, to be honest. I think that's just something that they do incredibly well. Like even the Tommy Hilfiger stuff was all really nice. And now they're Adidas, and I love Adidas as well. Like Adidas are the one sports brand that I do like buy from consistently. So I do really want some Mercedes Adidas merch, but I haven't had the opportunity to get it yet. Haven't had the opportunity to. I guess I could order it online, but it doesn't quite feel the same. I wanna go and see it, touch it, buy it. Miami one is too good. Which one was as in the Miami Mercedes one? I can't remember. Oh, the pink. Yeah, the pink, the Tomo pink. Yeah, I think Mercedes unfortunately are the winners when it comes to merchandise. Although you don't really see a lot of merchandise for the smaller teams. Like Haas's merchandise could be amazing, but I couldn't tell you. Even though there is a Haas in Norwich, there's the Haas headquarters, or like Haas something or other in Norwich that I drive past, and every day I'm like, what? Why is this here? Why is there a Haas something in Norwich? I don't even know what it is. Just a building with the Haas logo on the side of it. Unfortunately. Well, for me, I'd rather McLaren have the best merchandise, because then it gives me an excuse to buy it. And then I can still support the team and buy some merchandise that looks really good. But we've gone down a rabbit hole here. Should we get back to talking about the grid? We kind of discussed Piastri, Verstappen, Norris. I'll be honest, I don't imagine that the top three is going to swap around too much. I think Leclerc is going to kind of end up in a bit of a zone of his own again, unfortunately for him. I think that the Ferrari might just get left behind by that top three. So I think Leclerc is in such an awkward situation right now at Ferrari, right? Where every year it feels like he's getting closer and closer to winning a championship, and then suddenly it just spins like on a dime. Like 2022 felt like they were clicking, and then kind of fell away towards the end of the year. So it was like, right, well, 2023 can be a bit of a reset, but within that reset, then McLaren took their steps forward. And even though Ferrari then improved, they couldn't improve to catch up with the McLarens. Then 2024, similar. Verstappen started too quick. The Ferrari were kind of second best. Then McLaren came up, and Ferrari didn't manage to get the upgrades until Monza kind of time. And even though Leclerc had a real good stint in the middle half of the year, you know, you have that battle with Piastri in Azerbaijan, you have the win in Monza, you have those kind of really, really good races from the Ferrari. They couldn't do it throughout the whole season, but we were like, well, at least they've had a good enough year throughout 2024. They don't need to really change too much on the car, so they'll hopefully go into 2025 and be competitive. And then they decide to just do a whole switch up of design. And I know that they said they'd maybe hit the ceiling of what they could have done with the car in its previous iteration. But at the same time, that car last year was a lot quicker than this car this year, it feels like. And they've kind of taken 2 steps back to hope that they can take 3 steps forward. But the 3 steps forward haven't come yet. We're halfway through the year, and Charles Leclerc is now too far off the championship lead to really be competitive, even if the Ferrari upgrades, which have been coming over the last few weekends, start to put them closer towards the top end of the grid more often than they have been. So I do just feel really bad for Charles Leclerc quite a lot of the time, to be honest. Hello, Sarah. How's it going? Gasly's car wheeled into the pits. That is correct. Yeah, I was going to just say the Alpine of Pierre Gasly has just been wheeled back into the pit lane, which is never a good sign. And Gasly is currently taking a seat on the Alpine pit wall. So doesn't feel like this car is going to be starting. And that's a real shame. Gasly starting in 8th place all the way back to the back of the pack. So I think Gasly might just sit this one out, right? What's the point in racing it for 15 laps around Spa when you're going to be 20th? Well, Colapinto is going to be 19th as well now. So unfortunately, Colapinto and Gasly right at the back of the pack for Alpine. Even when Gasly absolutely rinses that Alpine car, qualifies insanely well considering where that Alpine's pace is compared to the rest. Like, he was starting inside of the point scoring places. And yeah, the Alpine has now been wheeled back into the garage. So that does mean Isaac Hadjar is going to be moving up into the point scoring places. So with the negative, I do love Gasly. I just feel really bad for him at the minute. It's supposed to be his first year as the team's number one, like the real number one within a team that isn't just a sister team to Red Bull. Like, it's the first year where he's like the destined number one driver of a team throughout his whole Formula One career. And it's been a bit of a nightmare, really, hasn't it? You know, 19 points on the board, but hasn't been able to drag that Alpine. Well, been able to drag 19 points to that Alpine, but not what he would have wanted. And now, after qualifying really well, dropping out. But with those come the negatives, come the positives. Isaac Hadjar now up into the point scoring places, been consistently getting those points on the board for RB. Been discussed, of course, about that second seat next to Max Verstappen. Will Isaac Hadjar be the next driver to go in there and see what he can do? So I hope that we'll see a little bit of racing from Isaac Hadjar. It'd be nice to see, actually, with Gasly gone, we do now have Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto all in like a little trio and all fighting for those final couple of point scoring places. So that could be a very, very fun battle to watch throughout this Grand Prix. Because if we do end up with Ocon and Sainz kind of disappearing up the track a little bit because the rookies behind just aren't quite set up for the full race, sprint race in this case, scenario, because they just haven't got the experience that those guys in front of them do have, at least we will have a lovely Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto battle behind, because the Haas has looked good, the RB's looked good, the stake, especially since Spain, when they brought that upgrade. We've seen Hülkenberg in the points all 4 races since Spain. Now maybe it's Gabriel Bortoleto's opportunity. He's just got to move up 1 place and he'll get another point on the board. 4 points so far this season. Can we make that 5? Maybe even 6 is what Gabriel Bortoleto will be thinking about right now. Midfield is going to have some great racing today. Exactly. I think that's where we need to be looking. What's my opinion on Behrman this season? It's been really underwhelming for me, considering how destined he was to be in the Ferrari. Underwhelming, I think, is a little bit harsh. I think, yeah, maybe he hasn't been quite as electric as we were expecting him to be. But I do think the Haas, and I spoke about this on my video that I made about sort of the mid-season driver rankings that I did a few days ago. I think that the Haas, because it's never been like Williams RB level of good, but also it's never been Alpine stake level of bad, because the Haas has just kind of sat in the middle for quite a lot of the season, we haven't really been paying too much attention to Ocon and Behrman. So I think both of them have actually been putting in very decent performances. And actually, Ocon and Behrman, if you look at their finishing positions and you look at the pace that the car would have had, they've actually been doing really, really well. It's just they never are the standout one. You know, they haven't had that like ridiculous 5th place finishes like we've seen from Alex Albon throughout the year, or like a a Stake Sauber podium like we saw from Hulkenberg. They haven't done like the extreme good, but they also haven't been the extreme bad either. We haven't seen like a Haas race where they've been obliterated by the rest of the field. I think Ocon in particular has been very, very consistent once again this year. I think Japan is the only race I can point at where I'm like, they should have done a lot better there. I suppose you could say in Silverstone, had they not collided with one another, and I'm sure Behrman and Ocon got a very stern talking to about colliding with one another, they would have done a lot better in Silverstone as well. So maybe even points for Behrman in Silverstone had he not collided with his teammate. So I think they've actually been doing a very, very good job. I think it's, yeah, as you say, just been a bit under the radar almost, because they haven't been in the extremes. They've just been right in the middle of the midfield, which can go a little bit under the radar. What about Cadillac F1 team? Do we have a driver prediction? It's looking a bit weird, isn't it? Perez, Bottas is in there. Colton Herta's been talked about. It depends what avenue they really want to go down, I suppose. I think if I was them, I would be taking a similar approach to what we've kind of seen from Audi, right? So I know that they got Nico Hulkenberg because he is German, but also if you're going to pick a midfield driver, Nico Hulkenberg is one of the better ones to pick, right? You know, you look at all of the kind of midfield, slightly older drivers that we ditched at the end of last year, your Joes, your Kevin Magnusons, like the guys that did feel like they kind of reached a bit of a limit and they weren't there. I don't know if Joe's a great pick. I think Joe would be good if you need the money, like the Chinese finance, but I think he just kind of slowed down a little bit in his progression. Maybe that was because the Stake Sauber car was so bad, but I feel like Joe did hit a bit of a ceiling and couldn't quite get anything more out of that car and wasn't as good as Valtteri Bottas last year. I think Sergio Perez would be a great pick for Cadillac. I know that I was very damning of him over the course of last season, but I think in hindsight we were all wrong. Like everybody was wrong. Actually, Sergio Perez was doing okay in that second Red Bull seat, considering how hard that second Red Bull seat has now shown to be. I think Sergio would be a really good senior driver, like Hulkenberg, in terms of that sort of experienced, will get points when they're available kind of driver. But then the problem that they've got is they don't have any connections with Formula 2 right now, with any of the other Formula 1 teams to take one of their rookies. So, you know, like Haas got Behrman because Haas have that really good relationship with Ferrari. Haas needed a driver. It made sense to put Behrman in that slot, especially considering how well Behrman did last year. Similar, like Antonelli at Mercedes, obviously been in their rookie academy for a very long time. Bortoletto, I know, was kind of an outside take, but because Sauber have connections with the other teams on the grid, like they maybe get there. So Cadillac, I think you'd be looking at like the Formula 2 drivers right now, or maybe even a driver that's sort of a little bit less wanted. Say Arvid Lindblad comes in at RB. I don't think Liam Lawson is like a bad pickup. But then you've got Perez Lawson as your driver lineup, which is like Red Bull rejects are us, isn't it? A Cadillac. Danny Rick, I don't think is a great pick. I think it's Bottas or Checo in that kind of main experienced driver role. And then someone, I don't know if you want like a full rookie is the thing. Because I was going to say, maybe you know, you bring in a Lindblad or an Alex Dunn. You know, you create that relationship with McLaren. But I don't know if you want like a full rookie in your first ever year as a Formula One team. I think maybe a driver who's had a couple of years of experience would be a good shout. Which then like opens the door to maybe like a Mick Schumacher or someone like that. Yeah, S has literally just said it. Mick Schumacher would be a good Cadillac driver. I don't know, maybe I'll do a video on it. I haven't really thought about it too much, to be honest. Audi be a good team in a few years. I feel like they're going in the right direction, right? I feel like Jonathan Wheatley is a very good pickup. Binotto, as much as he was a bit of a meme when it came to Ferrari, also a very good pickup, given his experience and given the fact that he was working at Ferrari for a very, very long time. Like, he will have a lot of really high-level insight from that side of things. Does make you wonder, though, sort of who, where, when the Audi setup will be able to take that next step. Hadjar for Rookie of the Season? It's definitely going that way, isn't it? Definitely going that way. It was sort of Hadjar versus Antonelli, especially when Antonelli got that sprint pole when it came to Miami. But Antonelli's just kind of fallen off a little bit. So, please do a video explaining the new regulations. I've got one sort of half written. The problem is they haven't decided on the new regulations fully yet. Like, you'll have known, the ground effect bits and pieces got changed recently. They've also changed some of the aero setup of the car to sort of make sure that ground effect is balanced out in one other way. So once the FIA and Formula One kind of actually sort out what they want for 2026, I'm more than happy to make a video about it. It's just, I don't want to make a video and then they change their mind anyway. So I'm kind of waiting on them. And once they've made their mind up, then I'll go for it. Right. Let's get a couple of bits loaded up then. We are only a few minutes away from the start of the sprint. Who do we think is going to win then? We're going to get our predictions in now. Piastri, Verstappen, Norris versus Leclerc, that top four. The rest of the sort of big names, Tsunoda down in 12th, Russell down in 13th, Hamilton down in 18th, Antonelli down in 19th. They're all going to shuffle up a position, to be fair, though, because it looks like Gasly is not going to be taking part. I haven't seen that Alpine come back out of the garage yet, and Pierre Gasly, last time we saw him on the coverage, was still sitting on the Alpine pit wall, so Gasly, unfortunately, looks to be out of this one. Get Yuki if he's dropped from Red Bull. That is a great shout, Josh. Yuki to Cadillac. Max, Oscar, Piastri, or Verstappen, both contenders. No one has faith in Lando Norris. Hulkenberg P1. Ocon will win. Piastri, Norris, Verstappen, Leclerc will all crash. Maybe a sort of Hungary bowling style. Here we go then. Right. Let's grab the board. Let's load that up. Beautiful. Shuffle. Oh, didn't mean to do that. Shuffle the track back over a tiny little bit. Here we go then. It is a very weird grid to begin with, isn't it? Especially, like, just with the sprint qualifying yesterday was one of the best qualifying sessions we've had in a really long time, in my opinion. Like, it was so, like, quick and competitive, and every single lap mattered. Every single lap counted towards something. Tenths of a second were devastating, you know. George Russell didn't miss out by, oh no, sorry, George Russell missed out by quite a bit, but like Lawson and Tsunoda were very, very close to getting through to Q3. Hulkenberg, Hamilton, Antonelli could all feel a little bit downhearted in the way that they just didn't get the pace of the car. They made little mistakes. Haas very low downforce. Very true. Maybe they'll be able to get a run at somebody down towards turn 5. Maybe Ocon up into the top 4 or 5. Top 3 or 4. He's starting 5th. Hopefully he's in the top 5 for his sake. But here we are then. The formation lap is underway. And as you can see, there is no Pierre Gasly, unfortunately, for the Gasly and Alpine fans. So he has dropped out of contention. And that means Isaac Hadjar is right behind Oliver Behrman. Bortoletto also up into 9th place, 1 spot off the point scoring positions. There is Pierre Gasly inside of the Alpine garage. And the Alpine, he's putting his earplugs in. Are they going to send Gasly out? Maybe they will put Gasly just out during the sprint at some point. Seems a bit of a weird one. Everyone running the medium compound tyre by the looks of things, apart from Franco Colapinto right at the back. Remember, though, there is a stagger to the Pirelli tyres this weekend. So the medium tyre is effectively the softs. It is the C3, whereas normally it would be the C2 around here, meaning that soft compound tyre that Colapinto is on is actually the C4 tyre. It's almost like an ultra soft for the Belgian Grand Prix. It'd be interesting to see if Colapinto can do all 15 laps on the soft. I suppose lighter fuel because it's a sprint race. But it'll be interesting to see how those tyres hold up, because degradation around here is pretty heavy, generally speaking. But we are seeing the cars coming around the final sector. It's quite a long formation lap. Oscar Piastri going very slowly indeed, just to slow the pack down a little bit. Doesn't want to be sat at the starting lights for a very, very long time. And especially because Piastri will be more using this qualifying as almost this sprint race as a bit of a guide to what to do tomorrow during the full Grand Prix. But here comes Piastri then, taking his spot on the grid. Hello from New Zealand. Hello. Colapinto will need to pit. It's not worth another set of tyres for P19. Well, that's what I think, right? Or is he going to try and go all 15 laps on the what is effectively a super soft tyre to try and see what the degradation is like, just in case they're thinking of using the soft tyre come the race? It's an interesting one. Oh, no. Colapinto's pulled into the pits. Oh, sorry, yeah, he's starting from the pits. He changed this wing. I was like, why is he coming into the pits? He's starting from the pit lane. Here we go then. Green flag is waved at the back of the grid. 5 red lights stand between us and the start of the sprint race. Who is going to come out on top? Oscar Piastri gets away well. Max Verstappen is going to come across to fight with the McLaren straight away. Lando Norris has got his teammate in his sights, but can't get around. Max Verstappen tries to go around the outside of turn 1, isn't able to do it though. And Piastri is away well. Piastri continues on. And up towards turn 5 they go. Ooh, hang on. I need to shuffle that down. There we go. Oscar Piastri is under pressure from Verstappen. Verstappen trying to catch up to him. Verstappen right under the rear wing of the McLaren. Peels to the right-hand side of the track. Is Max Verstappen going to go around the outside? He is indeed. And Max Verstappen leads the Belgian sprint race. And Piastri has been outdone by Max Verstappen once again. Apologies, that is just loading. Let me give that a little bit of a reset for you. Slipstream worked beautifully for Max Verstappen there. Verstappen up into P1, Piastri down to P2. Charles Leclerc also able to get the better of Lando Norris, and it seemed that that slipstream was exactly what they needed. It is all going on. Oh my goodness me. Verstappen with a perfect first lap. He now leads, but he's going to have the McLaren of Oscar Piastri right under his rear wing. Then it's Leclerc from Norris. Ocon has kept his position. Sainz as well behind that. Then it's Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoletto as they were at the beginning. Most people shuffled in. There we go. George Russell having a little look at Yuki Tsunoda. Not able to do it at the moment. Hamilton and Antonelli also trying to make their moves where they can. it was just so good from Verstappen. Charles Leclerc did exactly the same thing, got right under the rear wing of Lando Norris, peeled to the left-hand side of the track, and both Verstappen and Leclerc gaining a position. Piastri is trying to come back at Verstappen, but just doesn't have the run as Verstappen did. Verstappen was able to just get right under the rear wing of the McLaren. And now we've got to wait for Oscar Piastri to maybe have the tyres come back towards him a little bit. We know that the McLaren is a lot better on its tyres than the Red Bull, especially because Lando Norris has lost a position as well. Lando Norris down a point. Piastri also down a point, so still 2 points gained for Piastri in the championship standings. If it were to end like this, Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar where they were, Bortoletto as well, Lawson, Tsunoda, Russell, Lance Stroll is the only driver who's been able to gain a position there. He's up ahead of Alonso now. Albon up into 15th. Hülkenberg, Hamilton, Antonelli, Colapinto in the order that they were. Gasly indeed out before it even began. His car rolled back into the Alpine garage before the sprint race got underway. Max Verstappen continues on. And Piastri, DRS down the short pit straight, closes in to the back of Verstappen. But now he's got to get up the hill. Red Bull running a little bit slimmer rear wing. McLaren with a bit more downforce. It's what allowed Max Verstappen to get the run at Oscar Piastri. But Piastri now with that rear wing wide open. DRS being used down that camel straight down towards turn 5. And still can't get anywhere close to the rear end of Verstappen. Verstappen continues on comfortably in first spot. Ooh. And the McLaren drivers are being told to try and cool the power unit on the radio. That is not a good sign at all when Oscar Piastri is going to be wanting to use everything he has to get back in front of Max Verstappen. He set the fastest lap of the race so far. But we're seeing Ocon, Sainz, Behrman and Hadjar still running around in the points. Hello, Kelly. How's it going? It was a very, very sort of one at a time. I suppose the problem with this sprint race as well is you don't really want to go for a move, especially if it's going to cost you qualifying later, right? If you crash out of this sprint race, puts you in a real bad position for qualifying later. Qualifying later is what truly matters. Oh, Gasly has joined the Grand Prix. Gasly now running around at the back of the pack, 2 laps down on the runners at the front. But Gasly just coming around turn 10. So Alpine have decided to send Pierre Gasly out. Seems like a weird choice, but maybe they're just trying to do a bit of investigation as to, well, first of all, what went wrong, and second of all, what they can learn to move into the Grand Prix later. Here comes Lando Norris, though, side by side with Charles Leclerc down towards turn 5, and Lando Norris up the inside of Charles Leclerc, takes the position and takes third place back from the Ferrari. Still a couple of seconds between Piastri and Norris, though. So interesting to see if he can close that gap to the front two. Piastri keeping himself within DRS range of our race leader, Max Verstappen. Ocon, Sainz, Behrman and Hadjar taking it fairly easy behind. Ocon a couple of seconds now adrift of this pack. And Carlos Sainz in 6th place, Ollie Behrman 7th, Hadjar in 8th is our point scoring places. Just doesn't seem like they, even with DRS, have enough to really get that position going. You know, we've seen Lando Norris there make a move, but it's not looking incredibly competitive in the midfield, unfortunately. Max Verstappen, though, using every little trick in the book, will be gaining battery power throughout the rest of the lap, using all of it when it gets to these DRS areas to combat the McLaren behind. The McLaren running a slightly higher downforce setup for the weekend as well, so doesn't help Piastri in this first sector where going up the hill at full speed, trying to carry as much momentum as possible into the second DRS zone. After turn 4, down towards turn 5, DRS is wide open for Piastri once again. He's closer than he was to Max Verstappen, but still not close enough. Piastri is closing in, but not quite enough. Here comes Kimi Antonelli. Antonelli fighting Hülkenberg, and Antonelli does get that move past Nico Hülkenberg down towards turn 5, and Antonelli up into 17th place. Next up, the man he replaced, Lewis Hamilton, is a second up the road. Oh my goodness, Piastri is right under the rear wing of Verstappen throughout the entire middle part of the lap. They are side by side with one another at points, it feels like. Oh, and then Piastri dips a wheel into the gravel around turn 14 and 15. So that is going to cost Piastri a tenth or two. Closing in still. And Lando Norris lost 0.3 of a second to his teammate in that middle part of the lap. So Verstappen and Piastri do seem to have the advantage here in just carrying that speed through the middle part of the lap. But I mean, they are also running that lower downforce setup on Verstappen's car. Piastri on the radio. How are the tyres doing? Seem okay from Oscar Piastri's perspective. Gaps in the midfield are getting quite big. Yeah, unfortunately, well, Isaac Hadjar has DRS, but Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, they're all kind of a second and a half adrift now. Maybe waiting for the tyres to go off a touch. Like, everybody is just being a bit more tentative. Because as we just said, you know, the medium tyre here is effectively the old style soft. Like, what would have been the soft last year is now the medium here. So they have gone a step softer with the medium and soft compound tyres, with the C3 and C4 being used this weekend for the medium and softs. So they're kind of maybe just seeing how far they can actually go, trying to sort of gauge what's going to happen throughout the Grand Prix, especially because they likely will have to run the medium for a good stint during the Grand Prix. Obviously, they've got the hard compound tyre to lean on for more of it, but you have to use two different tyre compounds throughout the race. Max Verstappen continuing to just grow his lead a touch. It's up to 0.6 of a second now. Was down. Oscar Piastri, though, just keeping himself right underneath the rear wing of Verstappen, putting Verstappen under pressure. Problem is, if there's one driver that doesn't really falter to pressure, he's probably Max Verstappen. He's been there, done it, won 4 championships. Piastri now having to just keep on the pressure as much as he possibly can, but to no real avail as we get towards the halfway point of this sprint race here in Spa. Piastri following Verstappen up the hill once again. DRS is wide open inside of that McLaren car, but it's just not close enough at the top of the hill to really close in on the back of the Red Bull enough. Gets to within striking distance, but not able to peel to the left-hand side or right-hand side to really put Verstappen under any meaningful pressure. And the midfield pack just slotting in. Kimi Antonelli does have a little look at Lewis Hamilton. Had to back out a little bit early there, did the Italian. Antonelli is feeling racy in 17th place. Not really much to fight for there, to be honest, but maybe. Maybe he can do it. Gap between 3rd and 4th. I think Charles Leclerc is just in a completely different world, unfortunately, this weekend. You know, you look at the McLarens versus the pace of the rest of the field, And Lewis Hamilton already struggling with the rear tyres on his Ferrari. This is the only thing that could change the complexion of this sprint race, is the fact that because the tyres are a step softer this year, they should go off a little bit earlier than we're expecting them to do so. Franco Colapinto starting on the softs. Can't imagine what it's like inside of that Alpine. His tyres must be already falling away from the carcass. And we have indeed just ticked over the halfway point in the sprint race. Max Verstappen still leads from Piastri in second spot. Verstappen making that move on lap 1 down towards turn 5, around the outside of Piastri to take the lead of this Grand Prix. Lando Norris remains in third place. He lost it to Charles Leclerc initially, but was able to get that position back from the Ferrari fairly swiftly after. Charles Leclerc still in 4th place where he started. Esteban Ocon is in 5th, Carlos Sainz 6th, Ollie Behrman in 7th, and Isaac Hadjar has gained a position up into 8th place and the final point scoring position after Pierre Gasly had an issue at the start. Gasly's car having to start from inside of the pit lane, and 2 laps down on the rest of the field is the Frenchman. Bortoleto, the closest competitor to the point scoring positions, but 1.2 seconds off the back of Isaac Hadjar. Lawson then in 10th place. Tsunoda, Russell, Stroll, Alonso, Albon, Hamilton, Antonelli, Hulkenberg and Colapinto behind. No action whatsoever. Yeah, unfortunately the midfield, maybe I didn't anticipate that. I was sort of saying, you know, the midfield, these points are really quite crucial for Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto. Like, the difference between scoring a couple of points here and not scoring a couple of points here could be crucial by the end of the season, considering maximum they're likely to score between, 30 and 60 points, depending on how the rest of the season goes. So 2 points could be quite big. But I think all of them have just realised it's not as important as qualifying is later today. So it's better to keep your nose clean, make sure that you're actually going to get the car home in one piece, and then save the real, competitiveness, save the real pace of the car until we get to the qualifying later on this afternoon and the Grand Prix tomorrow. And you can't blame them, to be fair. Lando Norris moving out of the slipstream of Oscar Piastri as well. So it just goes to show the McLaren cars were told on the radio to try and keep the cars cool. Piastri and Norris maybe both struggling a touch with some overheating. Lando Norris has closed the gap to the back of his teammate though, probably because he was able to just keep the engine that little bit cooler. So now he's able to run it a touch hotter in these last few laps. But Verstappen still leads, Piastri still second, Norris in third. And Carlos Sainz is starting to close in on the back of Esteban Ocon, which is finally getting a little bit of a move there between those two. The more experienced midfield drivers that are just behind this front four. Well, I mean, Charles Leclerc's all on his own, really, so... And then Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Lawson, another little pack of 4 that we've got just running towards turn 18 on your screens now. Behrman leading it, Hadjar in the points, but Bortoleto and Lawson will certainly be eyeing up a point scoring position as we go to 6 laps left, lap 10 of this Belgian sprint race. Lando Norris underneath the rear wing of his teammate now. It's a bit of a patience game. And Lando, just dropping out of the slipstream of Piastri. Not what you'd expect at all, really. But keeping the engine just that little bit cooler. Trying to get some fresh air rather than the dirty air coming off the back of Oscar Piastri's car. Max Verstappen still leads. Piastri has been basically the same distance from Verstappen for the entirety of the sprint, really. 0.6 of a second. Is able to gain in the DRS zones, but Verstappen just seems to have the better of it through this middle part of the lap. And the dirty air coming off the back of Verstappen's car really does hinder Oscar Piastri. Lando Norris, though, closing into this top two. Charles Leclerc, 4th place and all on his own. Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar still where they were then. Ocon and Sainz is the one I'm just keeping an eye on. Sainz closing in a touch, was a second. Now within DRS range of Esteban Ocon over the last couple of laps. Why Gasly? he unfortunately was rolled into the pits after the lap to the grid. So a real issue inside of Gasly's car. And then Alpine were just about able to put it back together again in the half an hour or so that they had between rolling it back in and the start of the sprint, but only managed to get the car out on track after everybody else had already done 2 laps worth of racing. So Gasly just running around all by himself. Max Verstappen trying to break the toe of Piastri. Piastri still not quite within range yet, but knows that time is running out. And Max Verstappen can't brake on the peak, so having a little bit of an issue inside of that Red Bull car. Starting to get very warm indeed, I'd imagine. Those tyres screaming, having been pushed to the absolute limit by Piastri for the entirety of the Grand Prix so far. And this is what I meant earlier on when I was saying Piastri just keeping that pressure on Verstappen, that consistent Verstappen having to keep pushing the car over and over and over is now coming home to roost, because Piastri, keeping that pressure up, has been able to push the tyres of the Red Bull just a little bit further than Max Verstappen would have wanted them to go. Gabriel Bortoleto is also got a track limits violation, but only the one so far, so nothing going there. And no investigations by the FIA at all so far in this sprint. It's been a very clean sprint race. Again, I think because a lot of the drivers realizing they actually need to keep their car clean and make sure that they are set up for qualifying later, because qualifying could be very, very competitive, as the sprint qualifying was. Max Verstappen under pressure from Piastri coming up the hill once again. This trio of cars at the front of the Grand Prix. First, second, third at the moment. Verstappen, Piastri, Norris. Piastri DRS open though, trying to close in on the back of Verstappen. Again, Lando Norris peeling to the right-hand side and just trying to get out of the slipstream to find some clean air. And Norris on the radio. And Oscar's battery is mid-level. Lando Norris being told on the radio, you'll have an advantage on the battery if you want to have a run at it. It's going to be tough, though, because Piastri still within DRS range of Verstappen. So it is going to be the battery differential that Lando Norris is going to need to use if he's going to try and attack his teammate here. But Verstappen still leads. Piastri second. 6.5 tenths of a second from the lead, and then another 7 tenths to Lando Norris behind. It is very compact at the front. Charles Leclerc in a land all by himself. 4 seconds adrift of this top three, but 5 seconds ahead of Esteban Ocon. Carlos Sainz has continued to be inside of that DRS range of the Haas, but still can't close in on the back of the Frenchman. Carlos Sainz, though, 3 points would be scored if he stays where he is, the Spaniard. Ollie Behrman, 2 points to play for. Behrman and Hadjar have released themselves away from Gabriel Bortoleto. Feel like Bortoleto must have made a little mistake there, hence why his lap time was deleted. But was able to keep Lawson behind, so Bortoleto still running 9th and Liam Lawson down in 10th place. Here we are then once again. Let's follow the leaders up the hill. Max Verstappen through turn 3 and 4. Lando Norris is trying his best. He's going to use that battery advantage that he was told about last lap. Has a little look. Moves out of the slipstream very early, though. Still doing it and trying to cool down the car more so than look for a move on his teammate. Verstappen, Piastri and Norris still where they were. Here's the onboard of Carlos Sainz going up. Wasn't close enough to Esteban Ocon. Alex Albon, his teammate, is also having a little look at the back of an Aston Martin. Albon versus Alonso, and Alonso able to close the door, and Alonso still running in 14th place. And hasn't been a lot of movement at all, really. Ocon, Sainz, Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoleto, Lawson, all where they started. Tsunoda, Russell as well. Stroll has been able to gain a position on Alonso. And then Albon, Hamilton, Antonelli, Hulkenberg, Colapinto still running around at the back of the grid as well. Pierre Gasly then 2 laps down on the rest. Hence why he's at turn 1 and Colapinto in 19th place is already around at turn 10. Here we are then. Interesting that like Hamilton and Antonelli have not been able to do anything either. Russell's been stuck behind Tsunoda. Those big names and the top teams, you would argue, just stuck in the pack. Here comes Alex Albon. Albon trying to make a move on Fernando Alonso, and I think he's going to be able to make it count. Alonso must have made a little mistake there. Not quite this time. Albon has to slot in behind Alonso, and Alonso does just enough for now, but Albon is going to be right underneath Alonso's rear wing. Coming down towards turn 5, Verstappen, Norris, Piastri making their way through it now on the penultimate lap of the race. And Piastri still not able to make a move. Verstappen still leads. Here is Alonso and Albon coming up the hill then. Albon is going to have the DRS to Alonso, and I think Alonso's fallen outside of the DRS range of his teammate. So Albon has an opportunity here to make a move on Alonso. He's going to get right alongside the Aston Martin. But still, Alonso able to hold on to the position, and a little bit of fighting right at the back of the pack. Not for much, but is what it is. V-Carb outperforming Tsunoda. Yeah, both Lawson and Hadjar ahead. Hadjar now up into the points after Gasly having to start from the pit lane. Tsunoda, the lowest standing Red Bull powered car at the moment, in 11th place. This is embarrassing for McLaren. Problem is, McLaren have just run a slightly higher downforce setup. Verstappen took advantage of that at the beginning, and they haven't been able to do it. The thing that will play into McLaren's favour come the race is obviously the strategy of it, right? With it being only 15 laps, we don't see any pit stops. We don't see any changes around in that case. But come the race tomorrow, McLaren will have much better tyre degradation than Verstappen. So it will be whether Verstappen's higher speed setup will be able to get the better of the McLaren's advantage with the tyres. But here comes Verstappen down towards turn 5 for the last time in this sprint. Piastri has a little look, but there's just nothing doing for Piastri at the moment. And Lando Norris settles in behind as well. Charles Leclerc just comes through turn 5. Ocon and Sainz have separated a touch. Sainz not able to have a look at the Frenchman for now. Ollie Behrman versus Isaac Hadjar for the final point scoring couple of positions. And they stay where they are. Behrman ahead of Hadjar. Lewis Hamilton trying to make a move on Alex Albon, and does make a move on Alex Albon. Hamilton up into 15th place, has been sitting behind the Williams car for 14 and a bit laps. So deciding now right at the end, he's going to slot himself into 15th. But Verstappen is going to get the first win for Red Bull without Christian Horner in the garage. Laurent Mekies taking the position of Christian Horner for this weekend and beyond. As Christian Horner, after 20 years of service, has been moved aside, and Max Verstappen is back to winning ways. It's another victory for Max Verstappen in Spa. He is phenomenally quick when it comes to this Belgian Grand Prix circuit. And it is the first win for Verstappen under the new regime. Piastri and Norris have to settle for second and third. Piastri gaining just 1 point on his teammate there in terms of the championship standings. Charles Leclerc, a comfortable 4th place for him. 5th place for Ocon. 6th place for Sainz. Behrman, Hadjar, Bortoletto, Lawson, Sonoda coming across the start-finish line as well. Russell, Stroll, Alonso, Hamilton, Albon, Antonelli, Hulkenberg and Colapinto just coming around turn 19 to finish the Grand Prix. Pierre Gasly decided to pull into the pits at the end there. Gasly did run at the back of the pack for a considerable chunk, but having started from inside of the garage, was a couple of laps down and finished in 20th place. But it is, as we just say, Max Verstappen's first win under the new look Red Bull regime. The first Grand Prix, the first win. Can't ask for much more than that down at Red Bull. And Verstappen showing he can still perform. Whoever's in charge, whatever's going on, Verstappen knows what to do inside of that Formula One car. Norris and Piastri. Norris actually getting ahead of Verstappen and Piastri already. Going home. And Piastri thanking the team. Didn't quite have enough in his words, but knows that that setup inside of the McLaren car, maybe that's something they can adapt a little bit before going into qualifying later today and then the race tomorrow, knowing that they just haven't quite got the straight line speed if Verstappen does get ahead of them. But as I say, then they've got the other side of things where they are a little bit better on their tyres. We know that strategy doesn't really come into play in these sprint races, where it certainly does come the Grand Prix tomorrow. It's not over and done with for the weekend for Piastri yet. And Verstappen very thankful over the radio to the team. Right. That is where we will leave it then, because I'm back live again in a couple of hours' time for Grand Prix qualifying later today in Spa-Francorchamps. So I'm going to disappear. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you could leave a like, subscribe, all of that good stuff. And I will see you back here in, 2.5 hours' time. Enjoy. See you soon.